So there's been a lot of talk about the end of Doctor Who. It's over, they killed it, you know the story. And while we all can see why it died, no one is talking about how it died. When did the disease first take hold? Believe it or not, what would eventually lead to the death of New Who was introduced in the very first season. So let's take a look at what happened. 2005, Doctor Who was rebooted, and Christopher Eccleston brought a surprising new charismatic energy to the role. It was immediately more grounded and visually exciting than the old series ever was. It took the bones of what made Doctor Who great, science fiction concepts, morality plays, and bold adventure, and made them feel brand new. The show had finally entered the modern era, and it was working. But almost as soon as it succeeded, it stumbled. The earliest episodes focused on the Doctor's adventures through time and space and his bond with Rose as a wide-eyed human tagging along for the ride. That's the dynamic that used to make Doctor Who so special. The Doctor as a kind, cosmic teacher/mentor, and the companion as the curious student or sometimes even the moral compass. But then came the tension. Not immediately, but subtly and unmistakably. Moments of lingering glances, a little too much emotional closeness, too many scenes implying something deeper than friendship. There was never an outright love confession in those first few episodes, but the romantic undertones were there. And that was the first mistake. The thing is, Rose should have never been the companion. This is nothing against Billie Piper, the actress. She did a great job. She did what she was asked to do. The problem with Rose as a character in her, I'm just a regular girl with a regular job in a regular shop, and there's nothing particularly exceptional about me, relatability, is that when it came down to showing what Rose brought to the table and why she is a main character, there was nothing really to draw from. So they justify the character's presence with what? A love story. They might not have come right out and said it, but the implied message was loud and clear. Suddenly, the show wasn't just about traveling to alien planets or solving time paradoxes. It was about feelings. It was about how the Doctor made Rose feel and vice versa. Some people might say that adds emotional depth, but it also took the focus away from the show's identity. Doctor Who had been a sci-fi show, not a soap opera. The Doctor was never supposed to be a romantic figure. He was an alien, above all of that kind of thing. Adding romantic tension didn't deepen the show, it warped it. When your main character is a 900-year-old alien and his companion is a 20-year-old human, it just doesn't make sense to force chemistry. The relationship should be more like a professor and a curious student, or a great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather figure and a friend. The Doctor isn't supposed to be a love interest. He's supposed to be a guide. Now, I'm not stupid. If the audience is drawn to a character, attracted to a character, then that can be instrumental in holding your audience's attention and retaining them until next week. You should want your audience to love the Doctor. You should want your audience to love the companion. But at no point in time should the Doctor and the companion love each other. At least not in that way. Now, after Rose, they introduced Martha, and Martha had great potential as a companion. The fact that she was a med student and training to be a doctor of a different sort could have lended to all kinds of themes and storylines. But no, they could not help themselves. They even had to weave an unrequited love storyline for Martha and the Doctor, which completely squandered what the character Martha could have been. Instead of keeping her an intelligent lady eager to learn with a demanding curiosity, they turned her into a lovesick puppy. And that's just lazy writing. But the real problem with adding romantic tension wasn't just what it did in the moment. It's what it opened the door to later on. Once Doctor Who let romance into the TARDIS, the tone of the show began to shift more and more towards personal relationships and sexuality. Now, there's nothing wrong with exploring a wide range of human experiences, but when those themes start to replace the original mission of the show, using science fiction to explore complex moral, social, and scientific ideas, that's when things go wrong. And what do I always say on this channel? The number one mistake writers make is forgetting why the story was loved in the first place. The show slowly moved away from exploring time travel dilemmas. Instead, it became more focused on who the Doctor was sleeping with or how a companion identified. It lost its curiosity. It stopped asking big questions about the universe and started asking small questions about personal relationships. Doctor Who used to be an intellectual show disguised as a fun, sometimes eerie adventure. It didn't talk down to the audience. It gave them something thoughtful and well-written with complex ideas to consider. Now, it's just another show obsessed with romance, gender, and identity politics. There's a place for that, sure, but it's not here. If the writers had kept their focus on the Doctor's adventures, his cleverness, and the way they interacted with the universe, not just with his companions, Doctor Who could have stayed what it was meant to be, a smart, quirky, science-based show for everyone. The emotional connection with companions did not need to be romantic. The Doctor could have cared about them deeply without it being that kind of relationship. In fact, they achieved that in 2008 when Donna Noble became the Doctor's companion. To this day, no companion has ever matched the energy and flow that Donna had with the Doctor. They laughed together, they fought side by side, and faced some of the most harrowing moments the series had to offer. And in a series so often defined by love interests and sexuality, the bond between Donna and the Doctor remains one of the strongest connections the show has ever given us. And they did it all platonically. Imagine a version of the show where the Doctor is still a mysterious alien, still teaching, still challenging his companions, a show where intellect and imagination take center stage, and emotional depth comes from growth, learning, acts of bravery, and sacrifice. That's the show Doctor Who used to be. That's the show it could have continued to be. But instead, it slowly morphed into something else. The initial decision to allow romantic tension between the Doctor and a companion may seem minor, but it was the first domino to fall. Once the show became about relationships, it was only a matter of time before identity and sexuality took over the narrative completely. In 2005, Doctor Who proved that reboots could be brilliant. It had all the right pieces: modern flair, smart storytelling, great casting, but it also made one big mistake early on. It let romance take a center stage, and that single shift slowly pulled the show away from its roots in science and imagination. And that was the poison that led to the rot. If it had found a better balance, if it had trusted its original charm while still evolving, it could have been so much more. And who knows, maybe it will be again someday and we'll get lucky with another reboot in a decade or two. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.